all know, I'm one of the founder of this nonprofit. For those who do not know, I see some of the new attendees today. For those who do not know, Testoper community is a tech community. Basically, helps individuals like you to continuously learn and grow in your career, entrepreneurship, and entrepreneurship aspiration. Right. So we focus on tech ecosystem, and we mainly focus on three key people in the tech ecosystem from the roles point of view. You could have understood by the name Testoper, right? It's the place to test your development skills. You know, in Testoper, it's the place to test your testing skills. Test Oper, test, right? It's the place to test your operation skills, right? Whenever you operate your applications, networks, or enterprise networks or whatever, right? Test your operation skills. So we basically focus on three key areas: developers, testers, and operation professionals. Of course, DevOps cuts through all the three, and DevOps, as you all know, it's a mindset. It's not a technology, right? So it kind of cuts through all the three, and everyone has to develop that particular skill set. So that's what Testoper is all about, and it's a nonprofit run by volunteers. It's not owned by anyone. It's not for profit. Actually run by volunteers like Sumit, Arjit, and every one of you in this call. So the growth of this community can happen only if you all, first of all, attend as an attendee, transform your mindset to continuously learn. That's the first thing. And the second thing is the Testoper community can grow only if you support it, either as a volunteer by providing future programs, because it is run by the volunteers for the volunteers, right? That's what the Testoper community is all about. So if you are interested in volunteering, if you're interested in providing future sessions in the area of expertise that you have, you all can reach out to us. Email ID is pretty simple: testoper@testoper.com, right? You can reach out to us, share your intentions, where you wanted to contribute by taking a session, or organizing the programs, or marketing, or doing some IT related stuff. And in fact, we are also building projects, open source kind of a project. So if you are not working, if you want a Canadian experience, you can actually join and contribute and build our project that we are trying to do, which will be a Testoper platform, right? Open source platform that can be used for the attendees to grow, develop their skills. You can join us to do that and get certificate from us, attend the programs and get certificate from us. So there's a lot of good benefits for you guys as attendees, right? And also as volunteers. So long story short, Testoper is a nonprofit. We rely on running this community from you, by you, and the growth also depends on you, right? So that's the point. And nonprofit means you. I wanted you all to understand we don't run it for profit, meaning nobody takes money on their pocket. All the money earned by law has to be spent to the benefit of the people. So anything that you donate, anything that you help your company to donate us, either in kind, dollars, everything has to be accounted transparent by law and has to be spent back for the community. So any help from you to grow our community as an attendee, as a sponsor, as a donor, as a volunteer is always welcome. So today we are starting our Codeathon series. This Codeathon series happens every Wednesday. And today we are starting a new topic in our Codeathon series, which is robot framework. This program is jointly delivered by two gentlemen, Sumit and Arjit Saha. Sumit, most of you all know. He's been delivering the programs, the previous program, so no special introduction is required. As far as Arjit Saha is concerned, he's the chief architect of an Indian-based company, W5RTC Technologies, India Private Limited. And he agreed to you guys and share his knowledge about robot framework to you all. So he would be taking the session for next completes robot framework agenda, whatever Sumit and Arjit had built together. As far as the some of the housekeeping is concerned, just make sure that if you do not have a Testoper ID, send your email ID. We will add you into the Testoper community MS Teams. It's very, very critical you be there, because when you be there, you normally get access to the, if you are familiar with Slack, it's like that. You get access to the different channels. We run different programs. There are different collaboration programs happens, like study group, job channels where we post the jobs. Community members come and post the jobs from different companies, and we do mentor-mentee program. So there's many channels and the many things that you can get benefited from. As I was telling you, if you really need a Canadian experience, you can join us to contribute on the project that we work together and we build for the benefit of the community again. So you're welcome to come, and we, if you show the interest, we will add you here as well. So that's from the housekeeping point of view. This session will run for 1 hour and we'll shortly close at 8 p.m. And with that, let me hand over the session to Arjit, and I hope there is not going to be any technical difficulties because he's presenting from India. And in case if it is, Sumit, I hope you would be able to cover that, right?
Yep. Yeah, that's correct.
Arjit, you can unmute and you can go from here, share your screen or whatever.
So I'll start with the introduction on the new topic. So today robot framework is the topic that we are going to cover, the framework that we are going to cover, and you can call it a tool as well that we're going to cover, right? Arjit will be delivering this topic. He's an expert on robot framework. He has developed some open source tool sets as well, which includes robot framework as well. So he's been a contributor in the open source community for test automation in general. Uh, so feel free to ask any questions that you have on robot framework. I'll be supporting him throughout the delivery. Uh, so in case he faces any technical difficulties or there are questions that needs to be answered, I will be supporting him in that. Uh, just to give you a brief introduction on the robot framework, robot framework is a very good tool or framework to do ATDD testing. What that means is an uh, acceptance testing based framework where where anyone from your business or from your BA can come and write those tests. The implementation is in the code, but then you have a top layer of ATDD. So basically what it means is that you can define business case in plain English language so that you exactly know what test scenario is, right? And ATD is where the three amigos sit together and discuss the developer, the tester, and the BA. They sit together and discuss those scenarios, right? And they can jot it down as in the plain English language. So it basically gives you a live documentation on whatever discussions you have, right? So in that sense, it's a very good tool uh, for running test automation. There are certain cons to it uh, uh, in terms of the framework flexibility because it specifically follows ATDD guidelines, uh, but not limited in a way on how you execute it, but limited in a way in terms of uh, the structure that you can define. So it's kind of limited in that sense, but then it's not a limitation as such, which is so big that it negates ATDD. ATDD is a wonderful uh, tool to have in your team so that you can use it along with others as well, right? So that's the whole idea. And also it's not just an test automation tool, right? So you can do RPA with robot framework as well. So there are many plugins that are being developed by third-party libraries and third-party uh, developers, which enhances or extends the robot framework functionality. Uh, Not just from the testing standpoint, but from RPA standpoint or from in general automation standpoint as well. From the language perspective, right? Programming language, it basically started its implementation with Python, but it does support Java and .NET as well, which is a different flavor of Python. So you have Jython and Iron Python. So Jython is for any Java implementation, and Iron Python is for .NET implementation. So you can definitely use it not just with Python but other languages, but the base still remains the Python. The libraries still are built in Python, but you can utilize those libraries and those plugins in any language. It doesn't just support web framework, it does support mobile framework as well. So it does have an integration with Appium, it does have an integration with Selenium, and also it has other implementations with different libraries and tool sets. So very versatile in terms of implementation. Even the data testing is you can use that as a high level implementation on any kind of data testing. Basically, the code written behind is still in Python, and all the data testing are being limited whatever Python can do. But then the implementation level, one level up, you do have a robot framework that can define those data testing scenarios as well. Apart from that, the biggest benefits that robot framework provides, that the structure is really modular. Uh, we can have a debate on this, on how modular it is versus other frameworks that we have discussed. It's not as extensible as other frameworks, but looking at the concept of why this implementation is there, why robot framework was needed, and what ATDD means, it does fit into that picture perfectly, right? And then it does follow a definite structure where it is modular. You can have a different data layer, you can have a different libraries that are integrated, different tool sets, and then you integrate everything in robot framework, right? And especially on the implementation side, a lot of companies are using this as a standard tool. So the biggest benefit is that it has gained industry acceptance. A lot of the banks are using it. Even if you look in Indeed, a lot of job postings that you see are specifically on Robert Framework as well. So acceptance-wise, the industry has widely recognized this tool as a good tool because of the ATDD nature. It does have good job prospects in terms of the jobs in the industry and the practice that the industry is following. So it has a very wide implementation in terms of the companies that are looking for people who know Robert Framework. Any questions till now? If not, I'll hand it over to Arjit. Welcome, Arjit. All yours.
Arjit, can you speak? Okay,
Yes.
good. Just want to make sure your internet connection is okay, in India. Thanks for joining us this early for this session. Can you also share your screen to make sure it works?
Yeah. I'm sharing is it visible? Yeah.
And there is some background noise. I don't know from where it is coming. Sumit, maybe I'll mute you for a minute.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay. All yours, Arjit. Good luck.
Okay. So as for the description that Sumit has already given about the robot framework, it is quite good tool, and the best part is the tool is open source. So anyone can use it, and they can use the best features out of it. So with the robot framework, the main point is it is a keyword driven approach. So people not so the people who are using it, they don't need to necessarily know the code behind it. So it's just simple English. You just write open browser and magic happens. So this is the best part of robot framework, that is a keyword driven approach. It's easy to install. Basically, the installation process is just a added library over Python. So you just do a pip install robot framework, and the installation of robot framework library is done. Along with robot framework has its own set of libraries which helps it to do the keyword driven approach things. So it has its own libraries like Selenium library. Like when we work with Python, we use Selenium, and that's a different library than the one that we use for robot framework. So in Python, what we do is we do a driver element and we do a driver.element.click and we pass in the reference. So it's quite a code thing. But for robot framework, the library that we have, Selenium library, that is only having some keywords, and behind the scene it happens. Okay. So this is the robot framework organization page, the official page. They have some what's the test cases, the examples, the libraries are mentioned here, the different libraries that can be used. So we can just go through these a bit when required. So the various things include that, like sample screenshot. So we can just click on the like check the libraries that can be used for screenshots for uh, reporting, like log file, XML file. So by default, what happens is when we run an execution of robot framework, the robot framework creates its own HTML file for a report. So that is by default, and it marks all the keywords that are being used in the test case. It is mentioned in the file, and it marks all of them as pass or fail accordingly. So this is one such library where you can use for screenshot. Okay, I'll close it for now. So robot framework can be used with different editors. There are built-in tools which can be used along with it. For now, for this example purpose, we'll be using PyCharm for the as an editor. But the best editor which is available for robot framework is Ride. So yeah, so this is Ride here. So Ride has some dependencies like WX Python, which gives it the UI. So Python, along with robot framework, doesn't have the UI capabilities which is given by WX Python. So WX Python has some limitations, and there are some bugs which are still being handled by the team of WX Python. So for now, they normally support Windows machine. So for Windows, we can easily install Ride, but for the others like Linux based or Mac, we normally use PyCharm because WX Python has some issues with there. And when we use PyCharm, so the main thing is we'll need to have some what is it, the tools or maybe some libraries of PyCharm, which will help him to to have the support of robot framework. So for now, what PyCharm gives us is that it automatically installs the specific plugins. And if not, if someone is using an old version of PyCharm or a different IDE like IntelliJ IDEA or Sublime Text or whatever, they can install the respective plugin. for PyCharm, what we use is IntelliBot. The name of the plugin is IntelliBot. I'll just show the PyCharm screen. So from here we get the plugins, and if we just type in IntelliBot.
Arjit, I think you haven't shared the screen, right? The desktop. You just shared the browser. So we are not seeing the screens. Yeah, you may have to unshare and share your whole desktop if you want to. Yeah.
Share desktop. Is it visible now?
Yes, it is visible. Thank you.
So IntelliBot, so it's installed for me. By default, if you're using the latest version of PyCharm, it's always installed. If not, you can just install the IntelliBot. So this will help. This is okay. So this is the plugin which will help to mention to make sure that you're using the right keywords to decorate the UI. So you understand the differences, the syntax properly. Okay. So from the point of view of installation, what I can okay. So pip install robot framework. This is the only pip install that we need to do. So once we do a pip install robot framework, it is going to download the latest version of robot framework for us. So with this robot framework, what happens is it will download the specific libraries like Selenium library and all. We don't need to separately download that. If someone is already using robot framework or they are downloading earlier version of robot framework, then what we need to do is we need to download Selenium library separately.
Arjit, there was a question. There's a question from the audience. The first question is from Zero. He is asking, is PyCharm in the list being displayed in the browser? I can't see it. Yeah, when you were showing the and also there was another question. I can read the question for you. It's okay. You don't have to. So the first question was, I believe Zero was asking when you were showing the the browser. He was probably did not see the PyCharm in the list, right? So that's what he's asking. And then the second question is, where is this pip command typed? So you're typing somewhere this pip command. Where are you typing? That's what was a question from Suman.
So you need to type it in any command prompt, like you do general pip installation anywhere. So you can use command prompt to run that, but there is a terminal window that is provided in PyCharm. You can install it from there as well.
Okay. So when basically what Arjit is typing is he's typing the command in the PyCharm, is it?
So yes, this is the terminal actually.
It's a terminal.
Oh, terminal. Okay.
Command.
Perfect. Okay, I think
you can just choose the terminal separately, or the terminal is integrated inside the IDE. So both fine.
So terminal is nothing but command prompt only, right? So anything that you want, you can install a pip, anything, any library in pip using command prompt.
Okay. Okay. So coming to the installation, we have okay. Coming to his question, if you don't see an editor named PyCharm here, doesn't matter. PyCharm works, and we normally use PyCharm. PyCharm is one of the flavors of the IDE for Python from IntelliJ. Like for Java, we have IntelliJ IDEA, and similarly for the Python flavor, we use PyCharm. So you can use this. Okay, and okay, coming to the installation, we use the terminal here on the IDE, or you can separately open the command prompt on your Windows or the terminal on your Linux or Mac, respectively, and just do a pip install here. That will be fine. So when we do the first thing is the installation of IDE, which will help us to write the code. Second is the installation of robot framework through a pip install. If you already need to check whether you have pip and robot framework or not, you can just do a pip freeze on your terminal. Same thing on your command prompt or your terminal here, and you can just do a pip freeze to list down all the available Python installation libraries, Python installed libraries on your local. Taking time a bit. So if you just go through the list and you can check whether you already have it or not. If not, you can just install that. That's the second point. The third point is if you just need to check what is the version of robot framework. If the robot framework is like 3.0, any version of robot framework which is greater than 3 years, like on my machine, so it's fine, and these libraries of robot framework come along with it. Though you can separately install them, but robot framework comes with these libraries now. Okay. So robot framework, after you set up the installation, the libraries are installed, the IDE is installed, so you're good to go with a sample test case. A sample test case, now there are two ways to write robot framework test cases. The first one is just to use the keywords that the library gives us. Like in this case, we are using a Selenium library. So Selenium library is what we have installed, and it was developed by some vendors, some company, or some third-party app developers, or from Python. So they give us the choice of keywords that we can use for our test cases. Similarly, the second way is to create our own libraries. So as as we have already understood that how Python works, and in the previous session, Sumit has given the idea about Python. So what you can do is you can also write your own library. Like you can write a Python file, you can give a def, you can write a own method that you want to execute, and that method name will be the keyword of our robot file. I'll I'll maybe show how it goes through, but the main point of robot framework is the keyword. So you can very well understand that these keywords, these are not codes but just simple names, and they are actually doing the work that is handled, or we don't need to go into the complicacy of writing a code. Okay, so the second way that I was discussing is the Python file. So what we can do is we can write a own library along with the libraries that we are getting from robot framework. If we are facing a issue, or maybe a point where we need to have some more functionality, some more refined functionality on top of what we are getting, we can write our own library, and in form of a Python file, we can give the name of the method according to our choice, and we can use the method name as a keyword in our test case part here. So maybe this is also a method that we use for from this library. So when we create our own Python file, we can import the Python file here as a library. So like what we have done is from a Selenium library, we can import the library here, which we are developing, like it's a test.python file, something like that. Okay, I'll come to those later, but just to tell you that how things can be done. So this is a simple test case where we are using Selenium library, built-in library from Robot Framework, and we'll start with this first, and then we can go into the later part. Okay, so the main part of robot framework, when we write a robot class or a robot file, the initial thing is the robot file has to have a extension of .robot, and in some cases we also use a .txt file to fetch the data from as a robot class. But normally it is .robot. So when we have a .robot file, we always start with the settings. The settings is what it's like the first section of a code which handles all the package, all the inputs of the robot file. So here we have a small documentation. So okay, I'll come to this one. Okay, example. So this is the example test case that is from Robot Framework, and you can download the Robot Framework. Okay, so this is the one that they have given, and it is open to all. I've also used this for the demo session here. So anyone who wants to have a hands-on can use this. You can just pull the code. The README file is explanatory enough, and it will help you to install and execute. So what they have done is, I'll just go through a bit on this. Like they have a demo application on Python, and it will just show you how to execute, like pass in the username, pass in the password, and click on login. So this is a demo application which is outside Robot Framework. In the Robot Framework part, we have different scenarios for Robot Framework: a valid login and invalid login, and so on. So these are the test cases inside the. I can just show this here. Yeah. So these are the test cases that they have given. I have written one test case, so just to show in a simple way. And these are the requirements. Okay, this is one file that is requirement file. Okay, so if someone is using a robot framework, this project to start with, you can install the requirements directly from the requirements file. And how to install the requirements from the requirements file is also mentioned here. So this is one way that I told you already is pip install robot framework. That is a way by which you can install single library at a time. So if you have, let's say, 5 libraries, you have to write this command 5 times manually. But what The second way is that we can write all the libraries that we need in a requirements file, and we can keep it in the project folder. And what we can do is we can just do a pip install similarly on the screen, similarly on the terminal, how we were doing it. Pip install robot framework here, how we did that. We'll just do a pip install -r requirements.txt. So this requirements.txt, what it essentially does is it will go through the whole file and it will install all of these libraries automatically, so we don't need to do it one by one manually. That's the advantage over this. So someone who is using the demo app that Robot Framework has provided with, you can start with the installation directly like this, or if someone wants to do it on their own, you can also create a requirements folder, or you can follow the normal installation process. Okay. So the basic two things that a robot framework file requires is the settings and the test cases. So there are many such sections like like variables, resources, keywords that we can define in a robot framework. Like let's say, so the syntax is 3 stars followed by the keyword and then again. So if you have the IntelliBot installed on your PyCharm, you can be sure that your syntax is correct. If not, it will always mark that it's not correct and the color won't change. So this is a good way to understand. Okay. So we can keep it or we can remove it. Okay. So the variables, these are the set of local variables that can be used for the particular robot file. What we can do here is, if we have similarly a value which is used multiple times, instead of passing that, instead of using the value directly, we can use a variable and we can mention the value for it. And we can use the variable name when and where required. Okay. Coming to the test cases part, this is the name of the test case. So whenever we write a test case in Robot Framework, we need to specify the name of the test case first. So in this scenario, it is a valid login. If I want to create another test case, we can write something like invalid login. So this will be the test case name. And under that, what are the steps being performed to execute the particular test case? Those have been mentioned here. So each time what we have done is, when we execute a test case, we need to open the browser. We can input the text for the username field. Okay, coming to this now, this line tells you that you need to input a text in a particular field. So what happens is, okay, I'll just also show. Okay, so what I've also told you is, they have the Robot Framework project, they have given a file, an application to work with. So we can just start this application inside, just go in the terminal inside this running demo. Okay, yeah, so the starting the demo application here, you can just go inside the demo app and you can just do Python server.py file. If you just give this command, the demo page will come up. This is running on my local host. This is the demo application that is happening, and this is being given by this robot framework project. Okay, I'll inspect on this.
Arjit, there is a question.
Before,
Where do
there
we
are a
get
couple of questions there. Yeah. Go ahead, Karan.
yeah. Where do we get robot.test file?
Okay. So this test.robot file is what I have created. You can okay. So this is a file that we have, a test1.robot. Just to make it quick, and if I have to type in the whole thing, it will take time. That's why I've already kept it typed. So when we need to create a robot file, you can just create a robot file just like what I've done. Go to new in your framework, go to new and click on file. How to build a robot framework uh, is it's a simple thing. It's just to you can just create a project, just open and create a new project, or first of all, we can start with the demo app that we already have. Inside that, you can just click on a new file, give the name of the file, and we already have a robot file. This is how we get a robot file. So this robot file, on this robot file is what we can start with the keywords. So this is the first keyword that we can write. This is, and we can write library, say name library. Okay. So what we have done here, what we got from here, same thing here. So this is how we get a robot file. You can just create a robot file and start typing it in it. So we what when you're dealing with the with a robot file, you can just have the examples. That's why I showed some examples here. The project, the sample project gives you how to start with a robot file and what are the different keywords that can be mentioned, like settings and test case. These are the basic ones that to start with. Eventually we'll know about the different keywords, but for the starting, these are the two useful ones. Okay.
There's one more question, Arjit, which asks, how does the framework know about the locators of the web elements?
Yes, that's what I'm coming to.
Okay. And one more question. I'll give you a 2-minute break. So there was a question by Navina asking, how do you decide TDD or BDD, what framework we need to select? Right? Is that the question?
Yes, Sumit. Actually, let's
Okay.
say, sorry, I
Yep.
will describe a little bit on
Mhm.
that. Let's say we have the user stories of, like, last time you have explained on the Selenium base, based
Right.
on the, given when then we can go for the BDD, right?
Correct.
So let's say, example, we do not have that kind of a user stories example, just only acceptance criteria they're trying to mention. So at that time, and also developers also following on the TDD, then in that case, how do we, selection of the frameworks, like, now confused. Yeah.
So there are three major frameworks that we are doing, right? So TDD, ATDD, which is acceptance testing driven development, and then behavior driven development, which is BDD, right? So to differentiate between the three, TDD is mostly done by developers, right? Which is test driven development. But now QA are jumping into it and they're writing unit codes, right? Unit testing code. So that falls under the TDD scenario where you write your test first and you write in such a way that it fails, right? And then you develop your code in order to pass this test. That's the whole concept of TDD, right? And not anyone can write those tests. A developer can write the test. A tester can write the test. So we just need to make sure that the philosophy that TDD follows is you write the test before you start writing the code, right? And you write in such a way that it fails. And your objective as a developer is to pass this test, right? That's TDD. ATDD goes well along with TDD, right? What it means is that you have an acceptance criteria that uh, that what my app should be doing or what my single workflow should be doing, right? And that's basically, again, it follows the same test-driven development philosophy where it should be failing first, and then you write the code in order to accept it. Now, ATDD does have a top-down approach where you, communication-wise, the business uh, or the business analyst is floating those scenarios, right? And then you define those scenarios in ATDD at a high level to say that this functionality should pass after the code is written. So you can tie both TDD and ATDD together. So this is how it works, right? TDD in between ATDD and then BDD. So you can interchangeably, there are some redundancies in the features in all these three, right? But from the implementation perspective, every every framework or philosophy has a different touch to it, right? So BDD follows a completely top-down approach where a user or a third-party person, not QA or developer, is writing those BDD tests, or they are doing the discussions together and then writing the BDD test, right? ATDD, however, it can be written by QA, right? As an acceptance criteria, but in discussions with the business or the business analyst, right? TDD is the whole philosophy of TDD is to write a test first and then code. ATDD, write the test first, it fails, but you're doing it at acceptance level, right? What it means is you're doing it at a higher level than the code, right? It doesn't bother the code. It's about the functionality. And BDD is where you're basically your business is saying that we want this, right? And we want this to be tested. And then you are working on the BDD. So it's up to your organization structure, what framework or philosophy you want to implement. TDD is gaining a lot of importance these days uh, because you're doing it early in the cycle, so it saves a lot of bugs that are floating ahead, right? In the same way, ATDD is again following the same philosophy. BDD, however, is uh, on a given when then syntax where uh, you define those scenarios in plain English language, and then you are doing it based on what business wants, right? So that means BDD has an external eye on it, which is your business. So they should be able to read in plain English language because they don't know the code. That's why the BDD is gaining importance because it needs visibility on the business side as well. TDD doesn't need any visibility on the business side. It's more about code, right? So that's why it remains inside the development team itself. ATDD is a mix of both. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
back to
So,
you, Ruchi.
yeah, sure. There were some questions from Louis as well, right? Is Cucumber or the same? Cucumber is a BDD approach too, I believe. But at the same time, there was a input from Zero saying that let's focus on robot framework. We are losing time. So, so let's give Arjit a chance. Arjit, I know that we are losing time. We have like 7 minutes. At least you wanted to kind of wrap up running the demo for this session. Maybe in the next session, you can kind of explain the rationale behind the demo.
Okay.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, so I'll just answer the question that there was there. It was for the how to bind the locator. So the locator, this is a command that they have, the keyword. It expects two things. One is the first one is the locator, the second is the string that needs to be passed. Okay, I'll just show. So you can just give the locator here. You can just check. This is your ID, the username field. So this being ID, it's a unique value. You can just place it here. So by default, this command, the keyword expects the first argument to be passed. This to this method, the first argument passed should be a locator, and the second is the string. So this is how robot framework decides connects the locator with the string that's being passed. Okay, so on the first one is the open browser. So it's the same thing. It opens the browser, accepts two values. First is the URL that needs to open. The second is the browser that needs to open. Okay, coming to this point, I have the URL mentioned here, which is the demo app URL and the type of browser. You can even place it here, but what I've done is just to show the variable scenario. We have placed the variables here, and we're using the values. So if you want to use the value of server again, you can just use the variable, and you don't need to write the value actually. So if the thing is changing, you can just change it at one place and it reflects everywhere. Else, if you write the value directly, you'll have to change the value everywhere. So that's a tedious task. Okay, I'll come to this later. I'll remove this for now.
There's one related question. Sorry,
Yeah.
what you're explaining, Arjit.
Yeah.
The related question is, there's a couple of related questions, right? Where open browser is defined. I think it's a library, correct?
Yes. So open browser is a keyword that's mentioned in Selenium library of robot framework. So this browser, like what we do is, if you write a Python code, you can just write driver.get and it will open the browser for you, and you can just pass in the browser reference. Similarly, open browser is a keyword. This is one keyword, and if you're using Selenium library, you have to use this keyword. You can't use something else because this means something to robot framework. So this
And it is somewhere
thing
documented,
is mentioned.
right?
Yes, it is documented in Selenium library. So and we can just use Selenium library robot framework.
Got it. While you are opening that in browser, there was another question related to that. When you are taking that ID and putting it there, there was a question specifically asked whether ID exports CRS or name. How do we specify all that? Right.
Okay.
I think basically Sumit has answered that, I guess. Yeah. So you can go ahead and show the demo quickly. And then maybe, this is a good time to let you guys know. So if you don't have access to this MS Teams, please send your email ID. We will add you in so you can get the answers after the program also. Arjit and Sumit can respond to your questions after the programs to respect the time here to show the actual program. Okay.
Yeah. So this is the page for Selenium library of robot framework. You can browse through some more libraries here that you can use, and they have mentioned everything, like all the keywords and everything that can be used, and how they expect this thing to be. Like the first one, ID, the second one is this. So everything is mentioned in the library.
Awesome. Awesome, Arjit. Go ahead and show the demo. And
Okay.
like I mentioned, all the questions will be answered after the session. And you need to have access to the MS Teams. If you don't, please send your email address. We will add them so you can collaborate with Arjit and Sumit before and after. Go ahead, Arjit, to show the demo, and the rest of the things you can explain in our next Wednesday session.
Okay. So basically, what I'll always think is like the new the people that we are joining now will always use the latest version of Python, sorry, the robot framework. If in case someone needs to use the older version like 1.8 or before, what happens is this is the execution command for robot framework. Robot. So this is the execution command for robot framework. If someone is using an older version like 1.8 or before, the command will change to pybot. But for the latest version, it is always robot. And if you're not using the older version, then you don't need to worry about this. So it's just robot and the file name. This is used to execute a single robot file at a time. If you want to execute the whole set of test cases, you can just do a robot and the folder name. Like I have login test, I'm already inside login test. So if you want to run the whole thing, you can just go outside and you can just give a robot login test, and it will take all the robot files inside. Okay, I'll just execute this. You can see the Chrome instance, it's opening here. This open browser, the first keyword it's doing its work. It's pretty slow. Okay, so I'll also explain the last one. This is the tear down. Tear down is essentially the okay, let it go.
Just quick question, Arjit, from the audience, which is related, is can you explain the implementation of valid user variable? In test case, it's different.
This one?
Yeah.
Okay. So valid user variable is similarly what we have done here is we have mentioned Chrome and we're using the variable here. Valid user is another variable and the value for that is demo. But what I did is I already used demo here. If you want to use valid user, you can just use the variable instead of the keyword, like the value, hard coded, just to show the functionality I've kept it. So this is a string and this is the locator to this keyword. So I can either use the variable or the value.
That is perfect. Looks like your test case is passed. So is that
Yeah,
mean,
the test
Arjit,
case.
Arjit, the sample application that is provided by that open source has the valid user and password as demo and mode, is it?
Yes. So
Okay.
it is mentioned, everything is mentioned in their yeah. So they have mentioned everything in the README file. Everything is mentioned here. What are the values and what are the things that needs to be used. So if there's any issue with this, we can discuss that. But it's good to like anyone can just use this. The first one is just to install and then it will go on.
Awesome.
Also the reporting.
So for the attendees today, probably the good exercise could be until they come to the next week, get the PyCharm and get related plugins and go to that, download this app and run what you're running and be a little bit familiar for the next session that you're going to take. Is that the right way of saying it?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead. You had some final words to say. There's some nice test
Yeah.
report.
So this is the report file that robot framework generates. it's a default report file, and this is how they mention, like, this is the valid test case, the valid login, the name of the test case, and what are the keywords. So they always mention it as keyword because it's a keyword driven test framework. So they mention what are the keywords executed in. If any one of the keywords fails, it mentioned fail on the particular keyword, and the rest passes. So it handles the reporting like that.
Perfect. Anything else that you want to say, Arjit? It's already 4 minutes passed by.
No, that's fine.
Awesome.
Continue the next session.
Yeah, first of all, I wanted to really join you all to thank Arjit to get up in the morning. I think it's 4:30 for him, right? 4:30 or 5:30? Yeah, 4:30 he started the session for us and he delivered. And first of all, on behalf of all of you, I wanted to thank him. And again, wonderful session. And this is our first session, at least here it gave you a basics of what editor to use and how to get it up and running, how to run the demo version. Get used to it, play around, and more to come in the next session by Arjit. And I want to make sure that Sumit, in case Arjit has any technical difficulties in India, you never trust some of the connections, right?
Yep.
You have some backup plans around that. And for the attendees, please make sure that if you are not in the MS team, send it, because most of the questions that you ask, we wanted to try avoiding answers as much as possible so that we don't divert from the main topic. And those questions normally answered after the program in the collaboration channel that we have at MS Team. So please, if you do not have it, please send your email ID. We will add you. And I believe from the programs, we have Mickey, right, with us. Mickey, if you can add all the email address into the MS Team, I would really appreciate it. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. And also, I believe in the chat, we provided a WhatsApp link. You can also join the closed Codeathon WhatsApp group. That group is not to be used for asking questions. That group is only an emergency group in case if program change and schedule and some things like that to inform you so you don't waste your time. So if you are interested, please join that WhatsApp group as well. With that, I will wish you guys a great evening. For those who are attending the Saturday session, which is AI with Python, I'll see you on Saturday. For rest of them, I see you on next Wednesday. And if you want to join the Python program, please go to Eventbrite and register. All the best, guys. Take care, and I'll talk to you all soon. Bye-bye. Arjit, wonderful work, Arjit. You did a great job. Now we can go back to sleep.
Thanks, Arjit. Good
Thank you.
session today.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.